town, the same city. Meanwhile, there are people traveling thousands of miles to study in a new place. Living in the globalized world now, it is not uncommon to study abroad. Visiting a new country, learn a new language, and experience a different culture.
However, there are also teenagers who studying in a new country by themselves without the comfortableness of speaking their native language in school or the everyday love and care at home. Have you ever wondered about their stories? How did they make the years at such a young age? And what were the challenges they are facing?
Sometimes it never works out. A verbatim project on studying abroad as an adolescent was created by Jia Qiling with a series of 5 interviews. These stories you're going to hear are from experts of the interviews, with the exact words from the interview participants. All the participants have studied as an international student away from their home country when they were adolescents, meaning that they were in middle school or high school when they started studying abroad.
Our 5 actors also identified as international students here. The interviews were conducted in either English or Mandarin Chinese, so the performance you are going to experience is also going to be bilingual. There will be a translation provided on the screen for all the parts performed in Mandarin Chinese.
After the reading, we're going to have some audience engagement activities, and we invite you to stay with us for that. You'll also get a chance to ask any questions you have. Now, please enjoy. Sometimes it never works out.
I think the one best thing is to probably just be more conscious of the circumstances and the sort of the needs of international students in particular.
This is Erickson, who studied in the United States since 9th grade.
And so could be things like culturally, being able to address it properly if sometimes something if a student makes a racially insensitive comment, they should be able to address that quickly and effectively. And thankfully this wasn't really an issue at my school, but the other dimensions of it I think is logistics wise. You have to understand how hard it is for students to be able to study away from home. And I bring this up because I feel that's something in my high school did not do very well, was they weren't very sympathetic to sort of the circumstances of international students. For example, I remember when COVID happened, we were coming back from spring break, and I think they literally emailed us a day before we were supposed to go back to campus. And also for all of our breaks, we had to leave campus because a lot of the faculty and staff weren't on campus, so we weren't even allowed to stay in the dorms. But so basically, I think I was in a hotel somewhere in Boston because it was just a week. And then I was packing and I'm ready to go back, and then I get an email and it says campus is closed until further notice, there's no please don't come back on campus, blah 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 blah. And then I'm okay, what am I gonna do? I don't have anywhere to go, because I don't live in the States, so I'd have to extend my hotel stay, and then it was just this whole thing. And I remember sort of all the international students were super mad about it, because I think what the school they just really didn't think about it, and they kind of assumed that everyone could just stay home. But obviously a lot of us lived in the States, so there was that. And then even when we communicated to them what we're supposed to do, they were just kind of you should just go figure it out. So I think that's something that really struck me, was sort of the lack of sensitivity towards the fact that international students are studying away from home. And so there's going to be a lot of things that they're not going to be able to do.
可能对就是教育层可能还是有些不适应吧。然后就是
This is Joy, who study in the United States in the middle of ninth grade.
有时候你会就是还是有一些习惯说什么，就是有些作业你觉得会很需要努力做，然后其实发现其实也没有了，就是它也不是需要你拿出一个什么样的好成果，只是一个 practice 那种感觉。但有时候可能就是就这种感觉，然后可能就是有时候你感觉写作业好像很费劲，但是其实它作业本身也不是什么很复杂的东西的那种感觉。然后还有什么，就可能我记得前一高中有那种这个叫什么，反正就是管理留学生的，有一个专门的老师吧，然后当时跟他沟通就特别费劲，然后就是就是可能两边都有点理所当然，就觉得说啊我是留学生，你们该有这样子那样子的service， but you know， 就是有一些可能你们应该有想到一些这样那样的帮助的方式吧，然后他们也会觉得说，就也会比较理所当然，当然就是你们来我们这边学习的话，那你们应该自己想办法，或者是自己主动，怎么样，就是这种奇怪的沟通障碍。
I remember one of the, I guess, good things. I mean, there was so many, positive memories, but one of them, I would say, is when I was toward the end of my exchange year.
This is Anne, who studied in the United States as an exchange student for a year in high school.
So I had spent 1 year, 1 full year with my host family and my host sisters, and they were just amazing. I got so close to them. And they were Christian. So, I don't identify as Christian. And I can't confidently say I know, I understand their ideologies, and all the philosophies and stuff like that. But they, when they care about you, they pray for you, right? I think that's a way of how they show love and stuff. So when it was either a day before or a few days before I left my host family's house, they prayed for me. We were all circled together, and we were together, and they just prayed for me, they were crying, and that's when I felt like a deep love from them. And I also I got a sense of what it's like to, I don't know, I think I experienced a little bit of Christianity there. And because that was a question my whole life, my entire exchange year. Because I was living with a Christian family, and I wasn't Christian, so I was trying to understand their point of view. But I think that's when I felt a little bit of it. And I was just so honored, and I felt it was a precious moment to be interacted in their way, and being able to kind of being in that same, I don't know, it was, in the moment just being together, it's it was just very special.
就是少部分的主家就 they're really going for the money, but 就 then the situation becomes bad, 因为就 it's not a lot of money, but they still want that money. 那么就 very expectably 就 they'll be very stingy.
This is Justin, who studied in the United States since 9th grade.
And 就 所以说 there will be a lot of tensions. 所以我觉得就是一方面就是 almost every year you will have to move to a place you don't really know about. 然后呢就是 negotiating with these people can take a long time， and sometimes it never works out。就当时我10年级那个助教，就是因为感觉他确实很缺那个钱，然后呢他人本身又比较 anal， 然后呢就反正就是 like after 2 months like 就 like 就是 there were a lot of 就是 tensions， 然后呢他也看我很不顺眼，因为我觉得就是当时他就可能觉得就对吧，就 like it's kind of like this exotic hatred， 就为什么你一个东亚小孩就每天在那儿什么努力背单词努力在那儿学习，就是 how dare you 就 catch up with native speakers or whatever， 然后所以有很多这种就是就 kind of racist， 就是 sauce or whatever， 然后后来就是我感恩节就被赶出家门，然后因为就是我当时有一次就 debate 完了我回去，然后我早回家，我在房间里默默擦皮鞋。他不知道我回家，他就他回来之后，他就开始给他朋友打电话，然后电话里面就大骂我30分钟，就 a lot of like racist comments， 就是oh how dare that， 什么就是 Chinese kid， 就 learns， 就 he's so funny， he's trying to learn all these English vocabularies like he can just never get them right， yeah， 然后就他讲了30分钟，然后才发现我一直在我房间里面听，然后结果他当时就咚一下就把他的电话就 very dramatically 就掉到了地上，然后当时靠到门框上就是 like sorry I didn't mean any of that， 然后当时 I was like I don't know how to react， 那我就对他笑了一下，然后他就好像被吓到了，他就夺门而出，然后过了几天他就辗转通过其他人跟我说，就是 she felt mentally traumatized， 然后呢就 she had to evict me out of the house or whatever， yeah， 所以当时就被赶出去了，就 so sometimes it never works out， and that's entirely impossible， yeah， 就 it varies from year to year， 就有非常好的住家，也有非常坏的住家，但那么就是 I don't know， 就 like 相当于是你生活就有的时候我觉得你挺难有这个就是 expectations of stability， 因为就 despite of how well things can go in a moment， 就是 there's no guarantee that this will continue。
建议的话，一是别对未来害怕，我觉得留学。因为你来留学，那肯定是一个全新的环境，你没有遇到过的东西。
This is Andrew, who started studying in the United States when he was 16.
可能一开始你会发现最难做的事情是怎么把生活和学习平衡掉，尤其是一些从国内第一时间来美国这边，或者说去其他国家留学的人。我觉得他们可能初高中在家里，家长会很大程度上的帮助他们在学习之外的所有事情给料理好，让学生一心一意的去专注的写作业、考试，就是和学习相关的活动。但是在留学这边，你会发现你的时间不只要交给学习，你还需要切断很多时间，一是照顾自己的生活，你肯定得注意调整自己的身体，这边没有人再给你考虑谁给你做什么样的饭菜，二是你可能平时一些日用品你也要自己下来去买，就是可能琐碎到各种的日用品吧，就是这些东西都是会占用你的精神空间的，就有这样一个预期，就是你的大脑中不能再100%的投入于学习，你可能要倾注很大部分去适应你的新生活。如果说有这样一个心理准备的话，我觉得，那其实留学也没有那么困难。